Hey guys, welcome back. This is episode 6 of the Student Book Chats. I've been missing you on library days, so we're doing some library time here. You can come on into my living room and we'll talk about some of the books that I highly recommend. Let's do a short recap. In the first episode, I just talked to you about like the first 3 books and tried to kind of test it out. I've been playing around with how I'm taping the videos and how I'm editing the videos and uploading. So hopefully we're getting a little bit better at that and you're enjoying some of these and you're finding some books that you like to read. In episode 2, we covered 22 books because I've been trying to do a book a day during this whole COVID-19 mess. Remember, the first day we had off was Friday, March 13th, so I've done a book a day after that. In episode 3, I covered some of the books that I dip into daily. I talked to you about some of my journaling, my Bible study books, that sort of things. Books that I pick up, a poetry book a day, the journaling book, the question and answer that I do every day. I try and do a line a day reflecting on what it is that's going on this particular year. Something else we talked about in episode 3 is making sure that you are thinking about these choices and whether these reads are appropriate for you. So especially with doing a video, it's not like I'm talking to freshmen or sophomores or juniors or seniors. I'm just throwing it out there. So you need to think about age appropriateness. Episode 4, I talked about Dean Koontz. He's a thriller, suspense, kind of brings a lot of science into his books. So we talked about some of his books. And then by episode 5, we realized that we were not going to be coming back to school for the 2019-2020 year. So I just caught us up on a couple more book recommendations from there. I also talked to you about the Prince Award winner. So make sure, again, I linked it in the show notes. I went back and cleaned up all of those show notes in each of these videos so you can easily find those links to those awards. We've also numerous times talked about how you can be getting books during this. I do know that I've heard that the little libraries in front of the building, some people have been restocking those. I've not been out there. I've only been back to school one time during this whole thing. And I did notice that there were quite a few books in there if you need a physical book. But other than that, you can be getting your books through the ebooks or audiobooks through the public library during this whole time. If you had a card, plug in your number. If you don't have a card, don't worry. Go. You can easily get a card. You can also order your books on Amazon or from an independent bookstore. I think in one of the earlier books when I talked about John Irving's A Prayer for Owen, Meany, I wasn't sure if I told you that there is a movie based on that book, but it is actually called Simon Birch. I also learned that John Grisham's An Innocent Man has been made into a movie. Madeline L'Engle, where I talked to you about her A Wrinkle in Time, she has a new book that has come out this month, so take a look at that. So some of the books that I wanted to add reviews to for this week. Anne of Green Gables. There's Anne of Avonlea and Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables is number 1 in the series. It's by Ellen Montgomery. I have the paperback books here at school, or here at home, and I think actually that I have the paperbacks that are at school. So I read the first 2, Anne of Green Gables and then Anne of Avonlea. These are 2 books that, or a book series that I didn't know anything about until I went to college. And then I was an English major in college and I lived with some English majors, so we kind of all were moving in the same groups. And they would watch these movies and they were taught like the early movies. So we're talking like in the 90s. And the movies were probably made in, I would say, like the early 80s. There is a new series on, I believe, Netflix. There are 6 books in the primary series, and then there are some that talk about the kids of Anne. So when you start with the Anne of Green Gables series, I want to say she's like 8, maybe 10 years old. She's an orphan and she's been taken in by this farm family, and you fall in love with not only Anne, but in this older couple that has brought her onto their farm. These books were published in like 1908, 1909, and then maybe like 1 a year for I don't know how many years after that. But so it's really interesting to go back and read them now and realize that these were written in the early 1900s. Another book that is super timely is 1984, George Orwell. This was written and published in 1949, and again, he's talking about the year 1984. The things that he's talking about in the book probably did not really come to be in 1984, but they were definitely already being worked on. Talking about computers, talking about Big Brother, talking about how much the government and technology is embedded in people's lives. So super timely right now, very interesting. It is a classic. It's a very readable classic. You can see it's not that long, like 300 pages. It's not bad at all. Definitely a good classic to get under your belt. and is referenced a lot. He makes a lot of predictions in 1984 that have come to fruition and some that haven't, but it's been turned into movies numerous times. I can't really think of a particular version of the movie that I read that I liked or that stands out for me. It definitely has a lot of political overtones. Another great series that I enjoy, I would call it adventure, thriller, science fiction, fantasy, is by James Patterson. It's the Maximum Ride series. There are a lot of books in this series. And James Patterson he usually writes for adults, but then he ended up writing this series. If I'm not mistaken, I heard that he had a son and he didn't see any kinds of books out there for his son to read that are in the kind of genre that he wrote in. So he wrote his kinds of books, but he wrote them for young adults. Definitely falls within like the adventure, mystery, suspense, thriller, that kind. And it also is very science fiction based, because it's a group of kids and they all have special powers. I'm going to read a little bit on the back because I think they do a great job of summing this up. 6 unforgettable kids with no families, no homes, are running for their lives. Max Ride and her best friends are products of an experiment. They're engineered to fly, and that's just the beginning of their amazing powers. Now they've escaped and they need to know who made them, who's hunting them, and why they were designed to be superior to all other humans. So it's a great ride. Jacob Have I Loved by Katherine Patterson. It did win the Newbery Medal Award in 1980. I really enjoy this. It's a super sweet story, sad, a little dark. I would say even though Newbery Award winners can be any kind of children to young adult book, they usually stay around that intermediate to middle school kind of age. And this, you could probably start reading this by, I'd say 4th, 5th grade. 5th grade, 6th grade is probably a really good time to be reading this book. But if you missed this and you haven't read it in high school, this is a good book to pick up and read. Louise grows up on Chesapeake Bay Island. She has a very complicated relationship with her sister. It's a good story that talks about, like when it says the setting is Chesapeake Bay, it does take place around the water. Remember that Katherine Patterson wrote a number of other Newbery Award winners, and Bridge to Terabithia is probably her most popular one that you may have heard if you haven't heard of Jacob Have I Loved. Another Newbery Award winner that I just happen to have on the shelf, so I pulled it too, is Crisscross. This is by Lynn Ray Perkins. It's a little bit heftier. She was thinking that the grass really could be greener on the other side of the fence. It depended on who was standing in the grass. Maybe you had to go take a look. This also focuses on a young girl. And in the book, she is just longing for something to happen. It would be a good summer book. So again, if you have not read this, if you were thinking about going into education, if you're thinking about going into English, the teaching of English, this would be a really good one. And then the last one that I wanted to talk about today is a Jodi Picoult. This one's called My Sister's Keeper. This is about how big most of her books are. So this is the hardback, and you can kind of see it's pretty average in size. It is a book written for adults. There's about 420 pages in this. I love this book. It definitely tears your heart out. The premise of the book, there are these 2 sisters. One is struggling with a disease where she constantly needs the help of the other sister because she is a good match for her medically. She can donate blood, she can donate plasma, she can donate just anything that she needs. And eventually she needs something more from her sister than just something that she can go in and donate blood or plasma for. And so the story starts being more about the sister who is doing the giving instead of the sister who needs something from her. I don't want to say too much because it's really that kind of story where it really develops, the conflict develops, the story develops. It's told from different people's perspectives, which I really love. I think that's really interesting. And it definitely comes to a culminating ending that is super interesting. Jodi Picoult likes to write her books. I remember hearing an interview where she said, I don't like to tell you what to think. I like to tell you perspectives that you maybe haven't heard before and make you question what you think. And I think that's perfect for My Sister's Keeper. That's going to take us to number 52. We have been out for 52 days during this COVID-19. And I know that this week coming up, the week of May 4th, you have to turn in all your work. You are summing up your week. So good luck with that. And I probably won't see you. I won't be up at the school when you're turning everything in, but I hope to maybe get to see you by this summer up and around town. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know what you have read during this whole COVID-19 things. I'm interested to see what everybody's choices are. YouTube does not allow comments on any content that's made for anyone under the age of 18. But you can always email me. I'm happy to be your librarian. I've enjoyed doing these YouTubes, and I hope that I'm learning enough so that you can see the progression. And I know that these videos, the length has been anywhere from like 4 or 5 minutes to I think the longest one was like over 30, which is way too long. I understand that. But again, send me an email or message me. Let me know about how long you like your YouTube BookTube video reviews. Make sure you join us on Goodreads. All of the books are reviewed there. They're also reviewed on the book blog on the library website at bhslmc.weebly.com. Be sure and hit the like and subscribe buttons so that I know if you're enjoying it. Remember to follow the Blanchester High School Library on Facebook. We also have an Instagram. If you are looking at our website at weebly.com, you can see all of our links to all of our social media. So bhslmc.weebly.com, Weebly.